Hey, Kintan, good afternoon. Welcome to the podcast of Let's Figure It Out. Thank you so much for taking the time from your busy schedule. I know it's a conference, a month going on everywhere. So thanks for taking the time, but would love to start with how are you today?
Doing terrific. No, first of all, thanks so much for having me here, Jeet. No, it's been a privilege and kudos to you for doing this, creating this content for the broader community. And I've been a benefactor as a listener, so really excited for the opportunity to be here.
No, absolutely. Glad that you like the content and definitely just trying to do some part for the society here. But Kintan, I will not be able to make justice for introducing you because you are kind of like a tech veteran who has spent enough time with like the giants like Microsoft and Amazon, and now you're starting something your own, like your own startup. So please share some light on your background and tell us about the journey and sort of like give a brief introduction about yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for letting me weigh in. My one word description of my background and what I do is I'm a builder. And I've done that at throughout various phases of my life and at in smaller organizations and larger organizations. Right now, I run a company called Olto, the AI demo engineer. Happy to chat more about that. Prior to that, I
Yes.
spent over a dozen years at Amazon, just as most recently as the GM for the spoken word podcasting business, which I helped start. Prior to that, I helped start Amazon's streaming music business, where I was the head of product. And prior to that, on music as well as just movies, so IMDb and such. So my whole Amazon experience has been in consumer media entertainment at the intersection of pop culture and technology. I've spent about 5 years at Microsoft in enterprise software, worked on the object models of core of Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, as well as on unified communications. So the early versions of what is now Microsoft Teams. And prior to that, I'd started a startup right out of college that was a healthcare tech startup. So my career has been dotted with attempts of building and scaling things from zero to over and over again. And the second aspect of my career is investing. Because I love creation and building things, and I've always surrounded myself with other builders, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to invest in early stage companies. I must have invested in about 60 or so companies till date, and very fortunate to back some of the most ambitious founders I know.
Wow, that's a fascinating sort of like introduction, I must say, because you just gave a lot of different version of what Kintan could be. So like out of college, a startup, and then you work for the giants, like and not just work for giants, but created something unique, which I think everyone is using, like Teams. People are using Teams. Everyone knew about what Prime Music is and IMDb. So I think all the products you just named while you were working with the giants, they are like huge. So you are one of the best builders, I must say, in the technology industry. Tell me more about in terms of like the lessons you have learned while you were working either at Microsoft or Amazon building this amazing products. What were those lessons you learned which sort of like helped you building your own startup at Alto?
Yeah, I mean, the been very fortunate to have had the privilege and honor to work with folks who are just best in class at what they do. I remember very well Microsoft. I was in product. I was in the product team. I was a PM, and just coincidentally, I was paired up with a developer, a very senior developer, who had joined Microsoft in the year I was born. So there was like a my lifetime worth of professional experience and lessons he had incurred. So it was just really learning through osmosis. It's really the lesson here is that it just boils down um, to kind of compare and contrast, how you inform decisions versus how others with more context inform decisions, and then learn from that process and say, hey, okay, need to make this decision on the product, on the feature, or around latency or performance or schedule of the feature. How do I do this? And then I go and discuss it with the broader team as co-workers and say, how are they approaching that decision? And then if there is a delta between how I'm thinking versus how they are thinking, understanding that delta not necessarily, either trying to sell my idea or, accept their idea, but just really understanding the delta, uh, and it just creates the like of curiosity that's necessary to inform product decisions, to to understand how things work, how they might work differently, why, what context informs the decisions. I think that's something I was fortunate to learn very early, or realize very early in my product career. And a second thing, the second topic is more around, there's always been a dilemma about breadth versus depth. Do I go super deep and specialize in one thing, or do I remain broad and be a generalist? And I learned, this is realized, having observed some of the very successful folks, including very senior leaders at both those companies, that a good generalist is not a jack of all trades, but is a specialist in multiple things. So there's never a question about being a specialist versus not. Now you try to go as deep as you can in a topic, and then once you've gone to sufficient depth, now you go, or enough depth that has sufficient capacity to matter, to be able to inform decisions and choices. You pick up another area, maybe adjacent area, or otherwise. Because if you look at Jeff Bezos, for instance, I don't think he's a jack of all trades. I think he's a specialist in product, he's a specialist in business strategy, he's a specialist in leadership, for instance. So I think that was the second realization where I kind of, because I was debating earlier in my, when I was 21, 22, hey, do I want to go super deep into, I was studying computer science and economics. So I said, hey, do I want to go super deep into databases or security or, web? And I soon realized it doesn't matter. Like, you go try to do it for more than one thing. And that really helped inform some of the choices around the types of products I built over time. Intentionally chose to build both enterprise and consumer products. Being good at one makes you better at another, as opposed to specializing in just enterprise products, for instance, or just consumer products.
Absolutely. I think what I'm hearing from your thoughts is like every product guy or every product person have their own piece of idea, but when you're working and building something big, you also might have to consider and listen to other perspectives as well, because ideas might goes one or the other direction, but at the end of the day, the goal is to bring that value in that product which can help the bigger segment of the customer. And at the end, the product should win rather than the idea. And that's, I think that's what all the companies are trying to do, which is amazing. So tell me a little bit more before we dive into Alto, because I'm kind of curious after starting this podcast. And when I saw you have spent enough time at Amazon podcast, what was it like back in the day when you were working on that particular product, and what kind of challenges you saw while you were building that business?
It's really follow the customer, right? It's really about understanding, what the customer expects, what the customer is likely to expect, who the customer is. So, start with who, why, what, and how, like in that order. So as we looked at the podcasting business, at the podcasting landscape, I think there are multiple stakeholders. There are obviously the listener, who's also has access to videos and movies and music and all kinds of entertainment, as to where in their listening share are they going to consume audio content and non-music audio content. The second was around the creators. And what is this creator class? Are these existing creators with large audiences? Are these new creators with emerging audiences? Combination of both. What does one versus the other? What are the needs of one cohort versus the other? And the third stakeholders being advertisers. And where is the supply of ads coming up? Where is the demand coming along? What tech would be needed to go to serve the advertisers of the future in this medium? And it's really understanding, where do our strengths lie from a team's perspective, where can we kind of add a unique value prop, not just one more app, a unique value prop to the customers. So it's an exercise in customer discovery across. First, we identified who the stakeholders, what are the different types of customers, and how do we go deeper into serving all of them. We decided to partner with, through acquisition, there are three customer segments for creators, for content creators. We partnered with a company called Wondery, which we which we know is the best in class when it comes to being a podcast studio. For the advertisers, similarly, we partnered with a company called Art19 at the time, which offered advertising creator solutions and built the listener experience within the Amazon team, and then created the business flywheel across those three.
Awesome. I think what you just explained is like something, if you're building something big, I think back in your mind you might also having this idea of like, let me build something my own. And I think that's a perfect transition for our conversation to now dive into Alto, because I'm kind of curious to know how the idea, because being a solution engineer myself, I'm kind of curious to know that how this is all created. So take us back to the whole journey, how Alto was born, and how did you started the whole creating that idea on that paper or on the deck and put it into an action?
Yeah, I'd say a lot of it was in video calls and customer discovery, and just really having talked with two 300 sales leaders, both pre-sales, post-sales, CROs, and also from my experience in working with so many B2B startups that I'd partnered with, funded, etc. I think the main genesis was really this belief that the future of, say, in the future of modern GTM, product is going to play an outsized role. As information about different products, whether it's sales-led motion or a product-led motion, I think buyers want to see product in a very meaningful manner. If you look at the last 10 years of sales and the sales tech, I think the top three innovations, I'd say, or top three trends were more around smart email sequencing, smart calendaring, and call recording. And those were the top three things if you look at I believe product, getting access to the product in a very meaningful, contextually relevant manner was one. I believe very firmly that it's gonna, like, value has been the consistent, like buyers would want to see value, sellers would want to sell the right value in the quickest possible manner, and realize that tech had arrived. When we started Alto, it was probably the vintage of GPT-3. When we started thinking about it, it was 2.5, and then it was GPT-3s when we started really building it out. We realized that unlike before, by applying this LLMs to HTML, which is what majority of the SaaS apps are built, could actually modulate and modify data within live applications in real time. So that'll actually allow sellers, sales engineers, even marketers to tailor their product, tailor their demo to fit the narrative for every prospect, every buyer, every buyer's industry, use case, locale, and such. And you could do that in a somewhat automatic manner. Till date, we realized that the demo space, mid-funnel tech sales space, was either driven by bespoke homegrown solutions or using tools that were optimized for marketing, like a click-through product tour or a video or a clone. And they work in certain use cases, but for the mid-funnel sales, we realized that there was a narrative violation between what the need was. The number one job to be done by solutions teams often tends to be to tailor the product or tailor the demo to fit the narrative that has been discovered through the discovery call with the buyer and what the AE wants to achieve and so on. And the tooling gap existed. So we thought, let's start with that. And then our vision's really to build, to make it very easy for every stakeholder to get or realize the most contextually relevant value of that product. And a backstory, in addition to that, the backstory is also long time in 2011 or 12, I helped build a product or a feature called X-Ray for Prime Video during my time at Amazon. And X-Ray, essentially, the vision always had been to kind of help get the most contextually relevant information about a media. So if you're watching something on Prime Video, X-Ray would tell you who is the actor on the screen at that point, for instance. So it's very contextually relevant, personalized data point. And then for music, for instance, we built lyrics, was one example. So it's like lyrics of what are the lyrics at that point in time in the song. And I have personally, as a builder, always wanted to build X-Ray like functionality, but for products, for applications. And I even tried a few times. the tech wasn't there for the longest time. It was either too clunky or added a lot of performance lag or it was just expensive and hard until we started applying LLMs to HTML. And we realized that you can actually add a contextual layer on top of HTML, top of SaaS applications, and then start, tailoring those applications in real time. And it's a combination of this belief in the trend combined with the obviously customer gap as well as the availability and accessibility of the technology that kind of led Alto.
Got it. That's a great sort of like product for people like me who are like sales engineers to work on these demos. Can you give me an example of like, let's say, who would be the right individual? I know sales engineers are like your prime
Yeah,
audience
yeah,
or users, I would say, but
yeah.
who can actually use it? Is it like a salesperson can try to learn and use it? How does it
Yes.
looks like from their perspective?
So it actually starts, it's all about delivering the product's value in the most effective manner throughout the customer lifecycle. So it starts with embedded product demos and product tours on the landing pages. So at the time of awareness. So for those marketing teams, product marketing teams use us, just saying how our customers use us today to create tailored demos for visitors based on. So instead of giving a generic product tour, you can give a, depending on, say you are on an HR tech software company's website landing page. And today, in most cases, a demo or a product tour that is shown or a video that is shown to the person who goes to a landing page is the same regardless of whether they are coming from a hospital or a healthcare company or a bank or a software company. Most likely they are seeing a demo that's tailored for the software company. What if you could actually say, if I know that you're coming from a 1,000-person company in the healthcare space from Midwest versus, hey, you are coming from a 15,000 person bank out of the UK versus you're coming from a startup. The product demo you'll see for the HR software, let's say applicant tracking system, would vary depending on who you are on the landing page. So that's kind of done by the product marketing team. Now you do for SDRs, if they're doing an outbound, what if they can send a personalized demo, a link to a personalized demo that is tailored for every prospect? If they're sending out 10,000 outreach per day or whatever the volume is, instead of sending them a generic link, like a tailored for every prospect, that leads to accelerating the sales velocity, leads to hopefully higher win rates. And then when you are in the mid funnel, when you are talking with the AE as well as the solutions engineers involved, you have all this wealth of information from your discovery calls with the buyers. You want to use that information to inform the product demos. And what if you could kind of give a live product demo, but that is tailored for that prospect? If you're talking to somebody from a hospital system and you're selling a recruiting software, you can show open roles and resumes for physicians or x-ray technicians as opposed to showing it for a software engineer or an AE or something. So simple, I'm trivializing it, but that's an example. And then after the call, you can send them a leave behind, a link that is tailored to that prospect. So that leave behind, your product is continuing to reinforce the value and you can kind of track who's engaging with it. And then once the customer signs up, the post-sales teams can use the platform to showcase new features, onboard folks in a meaningful manner. And so it's all about delivering value of your product in a way, in a manner that's simple to understand, that's relevant, that's personalized, contextual for that stakeholder. And the stakeholder could be somebody who's just a website visitor to somebody who's a prospect, somebody who's a buyer, and a customer and user. So the idea is to deliver contextual value throughout the life cycle of the customer.
It's so great because I think I can relate very well on this part where, let's say, an SDR is sending out a generic demo, and everyone's watching that. You can find it on YouTube or anywhere. But if someone is sending me a demo, which, let's say, if I'm starting a company of 5 people versus you already have like 500 people, if we both are watching the demo and we both are catered in our own segment, 5 people to 500 people, I will be more engaged, even though it's just the same link we're watching, or probably the content is more tailored. So I, as personally who is watching, will be more engaging and more interested now to learn more about this product or this platform that how can I utilize this? And I think that might be also increasing the overall engagement in your sales funnel. So
100%.
that's a brilliant idea. I really liked it. So quick question: we were talking about GPT and sort of like the whole AI. Things are moving really fast. You just mentioned like you started during when it was like 2.5 or 3 GPT-3 was launching. How do you balance, like how do you manage the speed when you're building something like this? How do you overall manage it around
You
what's
focus
happening with
on things
AI?
that don't change.
Okay.
That's the secret. Like at Amazon, even like in the internet days, like early days of internet, things are changing so fast. So the early day teams of Amazon focused on things that were less likely to change. Customers would still want lower prices, larger selection, more convenience. Here we focus on what won't change even after the tech advances. So when we talk about value, buyers would still want to focus on value. Sellers would still focus on value. Sellers would care if the sales cycles are shorter. Sellers would care if the conversion rates are faster. Buyers would care to see what value are they getting, how is what they're buying, how is it going to help make their lives easier, and so on. So we focus on things that are less likely to change. That's number one. When we hire and build teams, focus on not subject matter experts, but strong athletes, folks who are early learners, like very fast learners, quick learners, adaptive, have a very steep slope in terms of when it comes to the acquisition of skills and such. So I think those are the top two things that come to mind.
Makes sense. Absolutely. And if you're building something which is sustainable, even though AI is changing or evolving, it's not going to disrupt. It's more sort of like helping your own platform only. That's so true. Can you tell me the story of how did you land your first customer with Olto?
Yeah, so we had through a combination of just deep customer discovery. Uh, we got connected via some warm intros, some were cold. Like we had a cohort of first customers, and they're all part of our
Okay.
design partnership program. And some
Okay.
came through cold outreach, some came through warm introductions and such. And it was really understanding you know, how their current approach to demos worked, where the pain point was the most acute, and really focusing on solving for the most acute pain point first, even though it was hard. It was what I described in Alto is hard to build. It's a non-trivial tech, especially on live products. Really prioritizing those features that have sufficient capacity to matter in solving a specific pain point for those customers. It's really, we co-invented, co-created some of these functionalities with our first set of early customers. So it was a combination of listening, prayers, and AI, I would say.
That is true. That is true. And it always helps to have a good set of network as well when you're starting something new, which can help you push towards that first customer line or set of customers. So for the next few minutes, Kintan, I would like to learn a little bit more about like because what you just started, lots and lots of listeners and lots of people out there, everyone has ideas in their mind, but they don't have sort of like the first step to do. So like they have the right product, they know what it can do, but somehow they're not very well with approaching to take first steps when it comes to investors, so like meeting with investors. What it Because you have invested in multiple different companies, what it takes for a startup founder or a person who wants to start something of their own, what is the process of meeting with investors and how to take that first step?
I think the first so it depends on who you're talking to, obviously. So there are I guess there are two aspects to the question. One is, let's say if you're working uh, if you're working at a large company, if you're exec at Meta or Google or Amazon or anywhere, Nvidia, the first step is, okay, how should I even leave this? Why should I leave it? Why should I start?
Yeah,
And the
big
second question
paycheck.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, big paycheck or the opportunity cost. And the second aspect is, okay, I think the VC question is kind of a subset of that question, at least based on, I've been fortunate that many friends and other folks like who are in a similar stage, execs at large companies, have bounced ideas around this question with me. And what I've seen is like we see the question around investors is a subset of this bigger question. Hey, should I even do this, and how do I do it? And after a few conversations and data points, having seen it play out, the real decision comes down to 3 points. Is like, hey, if you ever want to start a company and you think you have your decent idea and some decent team, then you should do it, number one. But why now is a function of, hey, between now and the rest of your career, the opportunity cost is the lowest today than it'll be tomorrow or years. Say if you are a VP, you can quickly become a SVP. Like if you wait 4 more years, you'll become SVP or vice versa. And then if you are a senior product manager, you'll become a director if you wait. So the opportunity cost between now and the rest of the career today is going to be the least. That's a logical way of answering it. First one is more about, hey, if you ever want to do it, might as well do it from a regret minimization perspective. And the third one is what most folks don't really realize is that, hey, look, if you worked at a large company and in a somewhat successful manner, it's a two-way door decision. You go start a company, if it doesn't work out, you'll likely get a similar or a better role, either at the same company or at a different company or a better company. So entrepreneurship is more of a two-way door decision, more of a reversible decision than what most folks think. They think of it as a massive. It is obviously a massive decision in the career, but it's quite reversible. It's more reversible than it may appear. So those are the 3 levels of the thinking points that have resonated with other folks at big companies who have then gone ahead to start companies and successfully. And then some folks realize, hey, should they leave when they have a line of sight to funding? And that's where your question comes in, which is essentially a function of, I think as investors, they are underwriting a few things. They're underwriting, hey, is there a real need? Is this product large enough? Can this team execute on it? And it really boils down to 4 T's, as they call it: team, timing, like is now the right timing; traction, like what kind of traction do they have? And traction doesn't need to be product, like have they thought enough about it, or do they have design partners? And then TAM, total addressable market. So team, timing, traction, and TAM. So once you feel that you have a resemblance of something world-class in one or more of those factors, is worthwhile to start talking to investors. And typically, if you're experienced enough and the idea has merits, because if you're taking the biggest risk, right? So if you are at a certain stage in the career and such, I think the investors would typically trust that you've taken a large enough risk and the judgment. Does that
That does, because I was more looking towards this direction of like the mindset behind presenting that idea, because everyone has ideas. Some people are good with designing the product or putting things like, hey, I have a cool product which can make sense. But when it comes to presentation, or when it comes to more like, how can I approach that first step? Because sometimes you're not in that career where you can bootstrap, so you at least need some investors to pitch in. Or and sometimes not every investor will say, yeah, come on, just show me your idea. It will be more like, majority of the time you'll be like, we don't have time right now. It will be like after 3 months or 4 months. But yeah, you gave a good perspective in terms of it's more like try and sort of like things will work out. One last question,
use
Kintan,
warm
before we
intros?
will
Yeah,
leave you. Yes. Yeah.
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 Use warm intros to the extent first, and then
Absolutely.
start with cold outreach for investors. Yeah.
Absolutely. One last question before we let you go is, what kind of an advice you would give to that 25-year-old Kintan if he wants to start something, let's say, where the world is heading, but every industry is getting acquainted with AI. What would a 25-year-old person would do if they want to start something new?
It's really understanding, like from a startup perspective, really understanding customers. If you have an inkling of an idea, just have that relentless pursuit of curiosity. And it's much easier to start that first with, you can just ask Perplexity or Chat GPT or Claude. and to kind of form the line of inquiry, form the types of questions, and then really go out and start talking to potential buyers. And they'll like really understanding, okay, these were the hypotheses. No, it's because building a product or a business is a race against time and uncertainty, right? So you want to just start de-risking things as soon as you can. And the biggest risk is the customer pull, right? So you just talk to customers. If you don't have access to them, call outreach on LinkedIn, use everyone you know to, you know, ask and request everyone you know to kind of help connect you with them. If not, it's a numbers game. So
Yes.
just reach out to end folks, and a small subset will eventually talk to you and make the most out of it. Sometimes, you know, people not responding back to you may be a signal as well, right? Because if there's
True.
something meaningful, then somehow like folks tend to, it does catch people's attention. So it's really starting with the customers, working backwards is what I would recommend, regardless of the age, like even if you're starting one at a later stage or an earlier stage. And then quickly create, like maintain a risk stack. These are the hypotheses. And let's say, okay, start with the hardest hypothesis and try to validate or invalidate it.
That's a great point. If anyone is looking like where should I pick the idea, just find the problem by talking to customers and find the pain points and target in that direction and probably start reaching out, which I think that's a great idea. You utilize LinkedIn in the best way possible to expand your network as well as reach out to more people. But Kintan, thank you so much for giving such valuable insights on like a first of all how to start a business as well as how you as a builder of product did an amazing job overall like from your whole journey. So we have learned a lot from today. But any last piece you want to share with our listeners before we sign off?
No, thank you so much. I mean, I really appreciate the work you do. Kudos for that, as well as thank you for letting me weigh in. I'd say that some of the thoughts and ideas I shared have worked for me within my context and my vantage points and constraints and resources. So mileage may vary. The intent is not to be preachy, but share one data point. So take it as one data point. And finally, this is a team sport. Surround yourself with strong folks just in your team. And team is, I mean team in a very loose way, not necessarily your co-founders, but just a broader team sport, even your friends, your supporters, your family. So there's
Absolutely.
a team sport. So treat it as one.
Absolutely. We love that. And thank you again for taking the time. And we wish you all the very best with Alto. And sort of like I'm really rooting for what's coming next for Alto. And we'll definitely stay in touch.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you letting me weigh in. All right.
Awesome. Thank you.